John Hughes gets a lot of credit for creating the High School movie. That is a complicated claim for many reasons, including that movies about high school did exist before the 1980s. But the claim is also frustrating because Amy Heckerling wrote Fast Times at Ridgemont High in 1982, 2 years before 16 Candles came out. So even if we're talking about some kind of renaissance of high school movies in the 1980s, that was led by Amy Heckerling. And then, in 1995, Heckerling redefined the genre with her hit film Clueless, the movie we are covering today. All of the other movies we are discussing in this mini-season happened because of Clueless. This is not hyperbole. This is an industry fact. You do not get 10 Things I Hate About You, She's the Man, She's All That, Easy A, or Cruel Intentions without Clueless. Those movies do not get greenlit without Clueless's box office success. The writers of 10 Things I Hate About You and She's the Man have directly cited Clueless as their inspiration. The concept of pairing classic literature with a high school setting wouldn't have happened at all without Amy Heckerling. Clueless is based on the 1815 Jane Austen classic, Emma. High school is the new Regency era, with its social strata and ridiculous rules, and the cafeteria is now the drawing room. Where you sit is monitored and judged closely. Clueless stars Alicia Silverstone as Cher, the updated Emma, and Paul Rudd is given his screen debut as Josh, the updated Mr. Knightley. Cher and Josh are ex-step-siblings who are still thrown together a lot because Cher's dad, Mel, says,
"You divorce wives, not children."
Cher also has a best friend, Dion, played by the great Stacey Dash, who doesn't have an exact equivalent in Emma, but is a sort of extension of the Emma character. Through their similarities, Dion shows us the ways in which Cher is a certain type, hyper-femme, hyper-rich, cares about clothes and popularity, but also about grades and kindness. But Dion also shows us the way that Cher is unique. Dion has a boyfriend of her own, and Cher just wants to set up everybody else. Cher goes into Emma's famous matchmaker mode, inspired by two key things. First, she gets a C in debate, and she realizes that her teacher, Mr. Hall, played by Wallace Shawn, will be nicer to her if he's in love. So she sets him up with another teacher, the bleeding heart Miss Geist. 2, a new girl arrives in town, Ty, played by Brittany Murphy. And Cher, recently told by Josh that she needs to be more selfless, decides to give Ty a makeover as a good deed.
Would you look at that girl? She is so adorably clueless. We've got to adopt her.
Cher, she is toe up. Our stock would plummet.
Dee, don't you want to use your popularity for a good cause?
Ty's makeover includes being told that she needs to change who she has a crush on. Ty's initial crush is on Travis, a stoner/skateboarder played by Breckin Meyer, who doesn't pass muster with Cher and Dion.
Lodies generally hang on the grass all over there. Sometimes they come to class and say bonehead things, and we all laugh, of course, but no respectable girl actually dates them. You don't want to start off on the wrong foot now, do you?
So Cher sets her up with a more appropriate guy as the ultimate accessory. The guy is Elton, a shallow creep who's actually into Cher. Then Cher gets a crush of her own, Christian. Even though she's busy trying to make sure that Miss Geist and Mr. Hall fall in love and that Ty finds a suitable love interest, she decides it isn't too selfish to try to find someone for herself as well and goes for him. Christian isn't interested in Cher. He's gay. And part of the reason that this movie holds up so well 30 years later is that we see the representation of a gay character on film in 1995 who isn't laughed at or tortured in any way. Then the climax of the movie happens. After being rejected by Elton, Ty, not successfully entirely made in Cher's image, gets a crush on Josh, which causes Cher to realize,
Oh my God. I love Josh. I'm majorly, totally, but crazy in love with Josh.
Ty and Cher get into a huge fight, in which Ty finally says what she secretly always thought about Cher.
I was like, why am I even listening to you to begin with? You're a virgin who can't drive.
Cher, devastated, makes herself vulnerable, and Josh professes his deep affection for her. And Josh and Cher get together. The film ends with all the couples together, except Christian, our gay character, actually. The movie isn't that progressive for 1995. Cher is with Josh, Ty is with her original crush, Travis, who Cher now approves of, Dion is with Murray, and Miss Geist and Mr. Hall are getting married. Only one of Cher's matchmaking schemes works, but this smart, pretty, popular girl has learned some humility and selflessness along the way. Clueless's impact is immeasurable, but part of why it has had this huge impact is because of Alicia Silverstone's Cher. Cher has become an iconic character in film and was almost instantly given that cult status. Here is cultural critic Hope Rehack on what makes Cher so special.
Having a heroine who's a good person who's deeply flawed, which again is true of Emma, is always going to be compelling, because when you have a generically great heroine, something where like the main character has things that happen to them but they never make bad decisions, it doesn't feel authentic or real. And with Clueless, with both Cher and with Emma, she's the reason for her own suffering. She's not a character that things happen to. She's a character who makes bad choices, then has to learn from them, which is really satisfying. And we don't get that a lot, especially with female-led stories. That's a very male thing to get.
While Clueless was groundbreaking in a million ways, it is also at its core a formula film. It is a traditional rom-com, and it even has a gay best friend and a black best friend to boot. But Christian's homosexuality isn't played for laughs in Clueless. When it's discovered, it's treated like a non-issue. Here is film critic Karina Antrobus, the writer of I Love Rom-Coms and I'm a Feminist, on Clueless's use of the black best friend.
The fact that she does have a black best friend, but actually within Clueless, it's a much more healthier representation than has been in the past, because she's got so much more agency over herself. She's got a backstory. She's actually embracing the culturally black elements of herself as well. She's wearing her braids. She's actually seen as somebody who's is in love as well. And for black representations of just black love are so scarce, especially during that time, that are actually interesting and have ups and downs. It's actually quite triumphant if you look at it through that lens, because, we are coming out of the other end of decades upon decades of racism within the industry, which did not allow us to see and observe and enjoy and appreciate that black people fall in love too. Newsflash.
This movie, even though it is conservative in all of the ways that all films within this trope are, did pave the way for a lot of progressive things. And then also things now that we just consider to be part of the rom-com genre, including the popular girl who knows how to exploit her beauty, her wealth, and her understanding of fashion in order to get good things done. You don't get Elle Woods from Legally Blonde without Cher. You don't get Barbie from Barbie without Cher. And you definitely don't get Galinda in Wicked without Cher. I'm Vanessa Zoltan, and this is Hot and Bothered. Hannah, this movie was one of the first movies that I felt when I saw it that it was made for me.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love Clueless. It's probably one of the movies I've seen the most in my life. I can't say that I feel like it was made for me. Tell me more about why it resonates with you in that way.
13-year-old me, I lived in the San Fernando Valley, which gets made fun of in this movie. And I was a scholarship kid at a prep school in Brentwood, where this movie, this movie takes place in like Beverly Hills, Bel Air, Brentwood.
Oh my God, were you Ty? Were you a real life Ty?
So, and I had curly hair. And then Katie Rubel, who I'm still friends with, was very popular and she took me under her wing. Not in this patronizing way, I don't think. And then I was also taking an independent study the year this came out, reading all of the Jane Austen novels. So the fact that it was also like Emma made me feel very cool.
Yeah.
I felt a very strong affinity for this film. That watching it now, I was like, I'm not sure this movie's that deep, Vanessa. What about you felt seen? This movie is very charming.
We don't need things that are deep in order to feel seen, you know? Like sometimes...
Apparently not.
Sometimes things that are just like, oh, wow, a version of my life showing up on screen. Like, that's really exciting. Or a version of somebody who looks like me or feels like me showing up on screen. Like, that can be thrilling. I think especially when you're a teenager.
Yeah. It was really fun to revisit this. And also, there are dirty jokes in this movie that I just understood for the first time last night watching it.
A joke that I don't think that I had remembered and that I was absolutely tickled by this time is Ty saying that she's never had straight friends before. I was like, oh, I don't think that I ever quite clocked that. And it says a lot about Ty as a person.
Do you think she means straight sexually or straight as in people who don't do drugs regularly?
Oh, I thought she meant straight sexually. But she meant she'd only been friends with lesbians before.
So watching it last night, I always understood it as queer before yesterday. And then I was like, oh, she might mean straight edged.
Whoa. Okay. Well, weigh in, listeners. Let us know what kind of straightness you think Ty is referring to.
I will say, more charmed than ever by Alicia Silverstone last night.
Oh, man.
What a performance.
She's just so cute in this. She's so cute. She's so charismatic. Paul Rudd, a charm monster.
And did you notice his little Kansas University hat that they let him wear at one point?
No,
and I was
what?
like,
No.
He's a very proud Jew from Kansas. This is like something that he like really cherishes about himself, that he grew up a Kansas Jew. And like does annual fundraisers in Kansas for like various hospitals and whatever. And he is sitting at the dining room table in Beverly Hills helping work on this legal case wearing a Kansas University baseball hat. And like
Cute.
This movie is costume designed within an inch of its life. It is not like he got this past anyone. He had to get this approved. And I'm just so happy for him.
And I'm happy that you're happy. Okay, Vanessa, tell me what you think this movie believes about love. We know what it believes about short plaid skirts, but what about love?
I think that this movie thinks that frustration and attraction are very interlinked. So, for example, Dion and Murray, like they are constantly frustrated with each other. But their bickering is a kind of witnessing of each other that I think the movie sort of believes in. And then Cher and Josh, they just frustrate each other for 90% of this movie. She's like, why are you listening to this pretentious music? He's like, you're so shallow.
Why are you sitting outside by the pool dressed entirely in black reading Nietzsche?
Like
so funny.
So many layers in Los Angeles.
So many layers.
And it feels like they are calling each other into being better, all of them.
Yeah.
And I think that when I was little, I thought it was bickering and like kind of mean. And in watching it now, I was scared because I do think Emily Nagoski, the sex educator, has like helped to deprogram me in believing that like hate and attraction or fear and attraction can ever really go together, that this is like a myth. But I think this movie actually threads the needle really well. They don't hate each other. They are not afraid of each other. They are not mean to each other. They are poking at each other.
Yeah.
Which is a kind of attention and is a kind of love. And I think this movie believes in like irritation as a manifestation of love.
Yeah, I mean, lovingly picking on people like as a love language really resonates with me particularly.
Yeah.
I just love to needle my friends. And I agree. I think that there is one thing that really defines the difference between that kind of loving needling and outright cruelty is like where it's coming from.
Yeah.
The degree to which you are, for example, trying to push somebody to be better, but also the degree to which it is based in a foundation of loving that person.
Yeah.
Which isn't to say, you know, because I hear immediately like, oh, people can be really awful to you if they love you and just want you to be better. But these dynamics aren't abusive or cruel. And
Right.
it's so significant that under this sort of frustration and teasing and needling, there is this kind of deep kindness. There's like a revelation later in the movie where Cher is looking around and appreciating the best qualities of her friends. And one of those is that Dion and Murray are actually very kind to each other, particularly when other people aren't paying attention. Which reminds you that like part of it is just like, we're doing a bit.
Right.
We think it's fun. We think it's funny. But like when push comes to shove and you accidentally drive onto the freeway, the scariest thing that can happen when you were 16.
Yes.
You've got each other's backs.
And the moment that we get clued into this, I think, with Josh and Cher is when Cher has this like truly horrible night where a friend of hers pushes her way too hard sexually, and then she gets held up at gunpoint. The person who she knows she can call is Josh.
Yeah.
And that he'll be there in a minute flat.
Yeah.
And so even though we've seen them only be hard on each other, and I agree, like never cruelly, but in a way that I think upon seeing this for the first time, if you don't know Emma, like you wouldn't necessarily clock as romantic. But
Yeah.
she calls him and he interrupts making out to come get her.
That sort of, at the end of the day, you show up for the people that you care for, I think is really foundational. And I think also another one of the moments where we see the difference between cruelty and this kind of joshing, if you will, is when Ty calls Cher a virgin who can't drive. Because that's not loving needling. That's not poking fun. That is finding something that somebody is like genuinely self-conscious or unhappy about and like poking them there. And it stands as a contrast of like real cruelty that then you can see against that how like Josh and Cher's dynamic is so much more tender.
Yeah, absolutely. What about for you? What do you think this movie believes about love?
I mean, I think one of the things it believes is that love is a little bit embarrassing. That like it can't just be a cool and sexy surface performance of desirability. And I think we see this in particular in the difference between what Cher is like when she thinks she wants to be with Christian, when she thinks that it is finding somebody who is as well dressed as she is, who doesn't really move her. He's just hot. But when she begins to realize that she has feelings for Josh, it's a totally different dynamic. And it's one that is much less about looking cool and much more about like being lightly humiliated by your own experience of desire. And I think we also see it with Ty and Travis in kind of a different way, which is that like Ty is discouraged from pursuing Travis because he has the wrong social standing in the school. Like, because he's embarrassing, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's a goof. He's the class clown. He's always doing bits. He's not suave. He's, like, trying to impress her. He's, like, falling down at parties and spilling beer on Cher's shoes. And none of that positions him, like, in the logic of the movie, as a less perfect match for Ty. the embarrassment seems to be almost sort of part of like actually really letting yourself be vulnerable with somebody and letting yourself want who you want.
Yes.
God, that scene where Travis and Ty are hanging out in the cafeteria line and she's showing him the Marvin the Martians that she's drawn in her sketchbook. And he's so impressed. And he's like, you didn't even trace those? It's, I think, the cutest scene in the entire movie, I gotta say. It's so tender.
I don't know. I love his acceptance speech for the most tardies in class.
Oh my gosh.
And you get this little bit of information, right? That his parents won't give him a ride. I'm like, oh, what's going on at home? What's going on at home, Brecken?
You know, another thing that really stood out to me in this rewatch was a line that Cher's dad says really early on when Cher's like,
you divorce spouses, not children? The hero line of the movie. Me too.
Yes.
Love.
And even though he is kind of awful for most of the movie, setting up that line right up front, you divorce spouses, not children. Like, Josh will always be his kid. It doesn't matter if he was only briefly married to Josh's mom. This is his kid. But that insistence that Josh is still family does introduce the challenge of the romantic relationship between Josh and Cher. And like, to what degree are these two siblings?
So the movie does go out of its way. Cher, before she realizes she has feelings for Josh says something to her like, you don't want a sibling type around. And she looks at him and goes, Josh, you are not my brother, right? Like, and she's very emphatic.
She does not think of him as a brother.
Right. And so I do think it is possible that like the parent can think of someone as their kid without the kids thinking of themselves as siblings, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
I think that this is a brilliant modernization of Emma because it has to be a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Because Knightley...
Yeah, it is part of the whole thing is that it's a little weird and that Knightley's kind of her brother.
Knightley is like 18 years older than Emma, and I don't remember if he holds her on the day she's born, but certainly when she is a baby. So I don't know, this doesn't bother me. And what? They lived together and disliked each other as what? Like a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old for like a year. This does not bother me, Hannah. Does it bother you?
It actually also doesn't bother me. It really doesn't. And I know that it's kind of part of how people talk about the movie, but in the grand scheme of romantic pairings, I do find the age gap creepier than the relationship.
What are we supposed to think? That she's a junior and he's a freshman in college? That it's 2 years?
She's 16.
Uh-huh.
And he
could be 18.
He could be 18. He could be a first year. He is certainly acting like a first year.
Yes.
But he's also, there's an implication that he's going to law school.
Yeah, but you can just be like knowing that you're going to be a lawyer young.
I don't know. Like, it's a little creepy, but part of that is because Paul Rudd is so obviously not 18.
I know.
But like Alicia Silverstone is also obviously not 15. So like
she's 18, right? Well,
yeah, like this. That, yeah. You know, they don't look creepily age gapped on screen. Let's just go with the headcanon that he is, what do you call it? A freshman?
A freshman.
Cool.
He's a first year. She's just 2 years behind him. Everything's fine. Don't look too close.
Everything's fine and normal. I will say one other thing real quick that this movie thinks about love is that it does put at least some faith in matchmaking.
Yes.
And the idea that sometimes you need an external push to see that the person who's perfect for you is right in front of you.
Miss Geist and Mr. Hall.
Miss Geist and Mr. Hall. I mean, a different kind of external push comes from Ty having a crush on Josh, which becomes the sort of moment when Cher's like, oh no, I have a crush on Josh. So there is this sense that you won't just find the person who's right for you without some external influence sometimes.
And I like that argument as well. So far this movie, just surviving for me. Surviving this conversation. Okay, Should we get into some of the subtext, the things that we think
Let's
this
get
movie
into
believes?
the subtext.
So I'm going to start with something that I can't tell if it's subtext or text.
Ooh.
This movie absolutely believes that popularity is good, that it's like actually virtuous. And I'm going to give 2 examples. One is that the Pismo Beach disaster relief works because Cher is popular. So we get this like shot of a bunch of people tabling and like trying to get people to sign up for things that matter, right? Like safe sex, save the earth, right? And these tables are empty. And then you get to Cher's table and it's Pismo Beach disaster relief, which is the cause that she's decided to take on to try to be a better person so that Josh will notice her. And because she's popular, it's super busy at that table.
Yeah.
And then the disaster relief fundraiser and donation center is thriving because of Cher's popularity.
Yeah.
But most interestingly to me, when Josh is listing the reasons he likes her, he lists young, pretty, and popular.
Yeah. Is that the reasons he likes her, or is it like the reasons why her life is good?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, okay, fair point. He's saying you don't need to be here helping with your dad. You're young and pretty and popular.
Yeah.
But it is this transitioning to, and now I'm going to kiss you, right? Like she's receiving them as compliments.
Oh, for sure. Well, it matters to her.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting question because certainly Cher thinks that being popular matters. And she thinks that being popular comes with social responsibilities of a kind. You know, her popularity, which is inextricable from her wealth and her beauty, are a privilege that she has and eventually feels a responsibility for using responsibly. And part of me is like, well, there's no possible way that that isn't meant to be something the movie's making fun of.
Yeah.
Except that I once had a friend who genuinely believed that the fact that she was an extremely beautiful person, like she thought that it was a gift that had been given to her, that it was her responsibility to use to try to make the world better. Like she really internalized this idea that like, I have been gifted with this beauty and thus it should be part of how I navigate the world in a way that I really, you know, for the period when we were friends, you know, I spent a lot of time trying to like help her understand the ableism and white supremacy at the root of that belief. 'Cause like, it's important to me that the people who I love don't think that like, if something happened to them that like, changed the way that they looked, that they would lose their value as humans.
Which something inevitably will happen to all of us that will change the way that we look.
Yeah, it's called aging.
It's called time.
Like, best case scenario, you're gonna age. And a lot of young women I know who did attach a lot of their value as people to their youth and beauty have like found aging very hard because they really did believe that like, this makes me valuable. This is what makes me good. And I gotta say, kind of like a weird benefit of having spent my entire life being a fat person is that I never had access to any of that like sexual capital. And so aging has been easier because I haven't experienced it as the loss of something that I had before. And so there's part of me that's like, I actually think probably a lot of women believe that being young and pretty and popular are just good things.
And I just don't think that this movie is making fun of that. I think that this movie is making fun of certain kinds of snobbery. I think that the movie does not like Elton's snobbery, right?
No. Yeah.
It at minimum thinks it's trashy of him to say it. You don't say out loud, do you know who my father is? I can't date someone beneath me. You can think it, but you can't say it.
Yeah.
But I really do think that this movie believes that popularity is going to help address the Pismo Beach disaster, which like it might be making an argument about materiality, which I think we all agree with, that like celebrities can raise more money for a cause than not celebrities. In which case, like, that's an interesting argument if that's what it is saying. But I do think this movie believes that popularity is virtuous.
Can I be really bold and hit the emergency stop button halfway through the segment?
Yes.
Oh, good, because I want to talk about charity. So there is a really conservative version of charity at work in this movie. It is one in which what is virtuous about what Cher is doing, and I think it's pretty clear that we're meant to read Cher's participation in the Pismo Beach Disaster Relief Fund as a moment of character change where she becomes less selfish.
Except it still makes fun of her. She's giving away skis and caviar.
It does still make fun of her. For sure, for giving away skis and caviar. And it is also like she's thinking about other people. She's thinking about her role in the world. She's thinking about the responsibility that comes with wealth and popularity. And that version of charity in which it is the responsibility of the wealthy and powerful to help those who are less privileged than them is both part of the Emma of it all, right? Really tied into the fact that this is an adaptation of Emma, which is a story that very much believes in the virtue of charity. But it is also particularly in the context of late capitalism, which is the context of this film. Ultimately, what Cher is doing is participating in something that, do you know how much we love calling things a something industrial complex? Mm-hmm. By we, I mean kind of like academics, like lefty academics. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's called the charitable-industrial complex. Mm-hmm. And the charitable-industrial complex, or the nonprofit industrial complex, is a sort of critical way of thinking about the structure of charities in late capitalism and in a globalized world, understanding that the way that charitable donation tends to operate is to benefit and give more power and control to people who already are wealthy, particularly people operating out of Western nations, and to continue to maintain a sort of hierarchical relationship with developing nations or with recipients of charity. And at the heart of it is this premise that you're at the end of the day not trying to change the structures, right? So it's not about like just taxing rich people and redistributing wealth. It's about praising rich people for their decision to use their wealth in magnanimous ways while ignoring generally the fact that that means that those people, by virtue of their wealth, now get to have an oversized impact on things like international development policies, world health development policies. You know, for example, there have been lots of critics in the global health sphere of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for the way that Bill Gates' personal interests massively shape the global landscape of world health. And part of that is that he is a capitalist, like he believes in capitalism. And so he imposes his model of capitalism and for-profit healthcare everywhere that he extends the power of his foundation. And so what we see at work in this movie is exactly that, right? These incredibly wealthy people who are making themselves feel better about their wild, disproportionate, profoundly unethical level of wealth by selectively redistributing based on a whim. Like the whim of Cher just being like, oh, this thing. I'm going to care about this thing. I think I almost want to say that the movie itself is in on this critique.
I think the movie is. I have an argument for the movie in on the critique. So this is something that I am obsessed with. Like I went and got my master's in nonprofit management and sort of checked out of the program halfway through and started studying religion, much to the chagrin of my nonprofit management professor. Mm-hmm. And so I was really watching for it in the movie. And I was like, okay, the movie thinks it is bad charity to give your housekeeper your old outfits.
Yeah.
Like Cher is listing all the good things she does. And she's like, I give our housekeeper clothes that I don't find cute anymore. And then the thing that it chooses as the arbitrary thing is disaster relief, which is actually a collective action thing that we all need, right? Like, we do know that it's disproportionately marginalized communities that get impacted by disasters, but it actually is not solely, right? Like, tornadoes hit everywhere, right?
Yeah,
Like,
people lost everything.
Right.
That includes athletic equipment.
Skis, exactly. So I do think the fact that Heckerling chose a disaster relief thing rather than we're helping poor people, we're helping a certain racial minority, right? I do think that there is a political choice of saying, like, Cher has actually learned a better form of charity.
Yeah, it is almost entirely an apolitical form of charity.
Yes.
That refuses a critique of capitalism as part of how it is enacted, you know, that kind of relies on this like community of young people who have like too much of everything, for whom it is not a loss or a difficulty to be like, oh, you didn't like this caviar, right? Which, by the way, people want money. They don't want your old cans of food. Like, food banks are saying this all the time. They're like, yeah. Okay, can drives for sure. But actually, you know what we want is we want money, because we are better at buying the food that will actually be useful for people.
Yeah.
Like, please don't give us your old cans of weird things you don't want to eat.
Oh my God. And after a disaster, please do not send sporting equipment.
Truly.
I mean, the thing that always obsesses me, right, like, is stuffed animals, right? Those like hangers full of stuffed animals that people sent after the earthquake in Haiti. And it's like, no, really, money. The Red Cross knows what it's doing.
Yeah. Just give them money.
And like, this is also part of capitalism, right? That we like do not believe that institutions know better what people need than the individual philanthropist. And it's like, no, it'll make me feel better to give the
right. And this charitable industrial complex is also about wanting to give people something, but not too much.
Mm-hmm.
It's tied into the sense that, like, if people have received charity, then those people need to be just barely comfortable enough.
Yeah.
People can't be the recipients of charity and be thriving. That's against the rules.
Which Cher disagrees with. She's sending skis.
It's almost like, again, it's part of what I think makes this both a sort of funny critique of the way that wealthy people enact charity. And, you know, I also kind of think a critique of Emma and the belief that Emma as a novel has in the virtue of charity. Because the novel Emma is making fun of Emma the character and the fact that her charity is often shallow, but it's not making fun of the idea of charity in general.
No.
And it is absolutely on board with the idea that there is something good about hierarchies as they exist and a kind of paternalistic responsibility that the wealthy have to care for the people whose lives they functionally run. There's a belief in the goodness of charity in Emma that Clueless is like absolutely not on board with.
The way that this movie does match Emma is that in Emma, Knightley is the beacon of good charity, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't just give, he gives plentifully, right? Like, he gives more, he gives apples, and he gives more apples than could possibly needed for cider or a pie right? Like, he gives over the top. And then he's also trying to regularly make himself of service.
Yeah.
He is helping the farmers that he's the landowner for, the tenant farmers, and he's like offering his carriage to people, right? Like, he's really engaged with the people to whom he is charitable. And I agree with Austen that that is a better form of charity than Emma's charity. And then obviously I agree with us that that is still not a system by which we actually change the world, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Austen was limited in her scope. And I think that Clueless, by updating Knightley into Josh, it's not like Josh is actually doing good charitable work,
Sure
right?
isn't.
He's partnering with Marky Mark to plant a symbolic tree.
Yeah.
And like what he does is know that the housekeeper isn't from Mexico, but is from El Salvador, right? And like,
and he watches the news.
and he watches the news. And
Yeah.
like, that is better than not knowing those things.
It is. It is.
But it is not like Emma, where we are shown Emma's charity is bad, but Knightley's charity is good, and this is the way we should be. It is Cher's charity is bad, and Josh's charity is less cringy.
It's a little less cringy, and like maybe Josh will go into environmental law.
Right.
Maybe.
But like mostly because he has enough money to not need to make money anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, Hannah, what do you think this movie is saying subtextually?
I was grappling with a very similar set of questions that you were in terms of the movie's stance on popularity. I do think at the end of the day that the movie thinks that people with the same level of cultural standing / sexual capital should be together. Like, the way in which Cher is wrong about Ty is that she thinks Ty is too good for Travis, but Ty is not too good for Travis. Ty is exactly right for Travis, but Cher's too good for any high school boys. We also find out that Cher was wrong about Travis in some ways.
Yes.
But it's not his social standing. Not really. He's not suddenly popular at the end. He's not suddenly cool.
He's not a stoner anymore, which is the critique that Cher actually levels, right?
Yes.
She's like, you can't date him. It is one thing to get high at a party, but it's another thing to be stoned at school all day.
Yeah.
And Travis, donates his bongs to the Pismo Beach disaster relief fund.
Sure does.
He hangs up his bongs.
And invests in his sport.
Yeah, exactly. And so I do think that Travis does change along the one line that Cher has articulated her critique.
Yes.
But I agree with you that is not her only critique of Travis, actually. And yes.
Yeah. And I think in general, and this is, I think something we talked about a little bit in Pretty in Pink. I think it's a characteristic of a lot of high school romances in particular, is the sense that the degree to which you are drawn to somebody is always a little bit triangulated through the perception of your peers and the degree to which your peers perceive that person to be a desirable partner. So it's not just like, I want to be with this person. It's like, I also have to think about how being with this person is going to be read by the people around me.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
how it will affect my social standing within, the very striated hierarchical world of high school that we see in these high school movies. And I think that is, at the end of the day, when we're at the wedding and everybody's been paired up with somebody who matches them really well.
So, I mean, you were transitioning us so beautifully. What does this movie think about our theme of high school movies that are adaptations of classics? What are we learning about high school movies?
I mean, I thought, again, I've said something similar about Shakespeare, but it makes so much sense to me the way these classics are so frequently adapted into high school romances, because I feel like in contemporary culture, high school is sort of the site where you have these most intense internal social circles that you're sort of cut off from the rest of the world a little bit. You're spending a lot of time with the same small group of people. You're spending a lot of time observing what the other people in your small social circle are up to and talking about it with each other. And there's this kind of heightened fixation on desirability and social standing and whether you wore the right thing to this party that I think doesn't map against adulthood in our world as well. But the world of Emma is a very small, constrained world. And, you know, I think that's a big part of Austen thinking about the way that women's worlds are rendered small by their lack of agency. And so when you move that into like the 90s, for example, it's like, okay, where's a world where women are extremely judged for physical appearance, extremely concerned with like who you go to a party with, and extremely constrained in terms of the actual things that you can do, the actual, like even just your basic mobility. And it's like, yeah, it makes perfect sense for this to be a story that is about girls in high school who are so powerful within their very small worlds. Like Cher is a huge fish in a tiny pond. And she's got an enormous amount of power in her social sphere. But at the end of the day, she is a 15 going on 16-year-old girl who has very, very little agency in the grander scheme of things. And I think that's a really smart kind of adaptation move.
Yeah. And part of me is like, good for us that it's only in high school that this still applies. And then part of me is like, crap for us that any of this still applies.
Yeah. You know, the other thing that I was thinking about as I was thinking about this as an adaptation of Emma and thinking about how so much of Austen's feminist intervention is believing that the internal lives of young women matter.
Yeah.
That one of the things that I encountered a lot while I was looking up the production history of this movie is that initially studio executives were not interested in this script because they were like, nobody's going to want to watch a movie that's just about teenage girls.
Whoa.
Like, there's not enough boys in this. The boys need to be bigger characters because a movie that's just about girls and what they're doing and how they feel is not going to be appealing. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting that, like, there might be a lot of silliness and shallowness within the plot itself. Like you said, this movie's not deep.
Nope.
And at the same time, it is like a major, incredibly popular movie that launched a bunch of careers that is totally about teenage girls.
Yep.
And that is, it for me structurally feels like it carries some of the same feminist intervention as Austen's books do. What about you? What did you notice about our theme?
I noticed that being in a friend group with someone in a high school movie does not mean that you're friends with someone. Cher does a photo shoot at one point of her closest friends. And one of those 6 people, she is friends with 6 people. It's Summer, Deanna, Murray, Ty, Elton, and Amber. And that's it. That's her group. She full on hates Amber.
Yeah, she sure does.
And I was just thinking, like, that seems like a uniquely high school thing to be part of a group of friends where there is like a social contract that you're in a group.
Yeah.
And there can be someone in the group who you actively dislike, but still have to hang out with on a daily basis.
Because you're part of the same group. You know what? Certainly resonates with my high school experience.
Yeah, mine too, right? And I don't think I noticed how much that is one of the benefits of being an adult. You're just like, we don't have to hang out as a whole clique.
Yeah.
Like, that's not actually required.
Certainly in my experience, that still requires a level of intentionality, even as an adult. Like, that when friend groups form around a particular social activity or a particular dynamic, that it can be really hard then to be like, I am going to hang out with this person, but not this person. I'm going to invite this person to this party, but not this person. Like, that requires, in my experience, a kind of social courage that you have to be making intentional decisions about who you are going to invest your time and energy and intimacy in, which also involves deciding who you're not going to invest that in. And that is, like, for me, how you build robust community, and also is not how you become popular. Like, she hangs out with Amber because Amber is also popular. Right. Like, they're just part of the popular group.
Yes, absolutely. And I just think that that's really astute about high school. And it's one of the ways that being an adult makes life easier. You at minimum don't have to see those people all day, every day.
Yeah, it's something about the way that you are thrown together with people. And I think, you know, certainly that's not my experience of adulthood, but also I don't work like a 9-to-5 office job. I think some people's lives are full of being thrown into forced proximity with a bunch of people who you're like, cool, I guess I spend most of my time with you.
Forced proximity, yes. So I was a part of a friend group at my 9-to-5 job. You know, I had my 9-to-5 job in an office, this particular one, for 6 years. And I was part of a core group, and there was someone else who was part of this core group. And like, he and I did not like each other, and we avoided each other. And we never had each other's phone numbers. And like, he wasn't invited to my birthday party, and I wasn't invited to his birthday party. But when I threw Jen her birthday party, he came. And there was no bad blood about any of this, right? Like, he wasn't like, what? I wasn't invited to your thing? It's like, no, we're not friends, right? So it does feel like, just as an adult, there's like an understanding of boundaries about personal conviction and personal preference.
And just a level of autonomy.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
You get to make decisions about your life in a different way.
Yeah. And so, I mean, this goes exactly to what you were saying, right? Like, I think one of the things I'm noticing is just like genuinely how oppressive high school is.
Oh, yeah. When people say, you know, I don't know a lot of people who say this, but sometimes people say the high school was the best years of their life. And that makes me feel very sad for them for a variety of reasons, including that being a teenager is really, really bad.
It's so hard.
It's bad. It's hard. If you're listening to this and you're a teenager, it actually does get much better.
It really does.
It gets
it's not
so
just
much
a YouTube
better.
Series.
Like, there's new challenges. There's new things that are hard about being an adult. But man, autonomy is great.
Oh my God. Absolutely. So, Hannah, you should watch this movie if
you want to witness the moment when the entire world fell in love with Paul Rudd, and or you're nostalgic for a version of Alicia Silverstone who wasn't an RFK Jr. supporter.
I know. She's so confusing.
Okay, Vanessa, you should watch this movie if
you want to watch plaid mini skirt suits look good on everyone.
Oh my God.
It looks good on Cher. It looks good on Dee. It looks good on Ty. Everybody looks good in a plaid mini skirt suit in this movie, and I flippin' love it.
It's enough to make me be like, maybe I should get, maybe I need to get back into blazers. But I gotta tell you, I hate wearing blazers because they restrict the range of motion of my shoulders, and I always want to be ready to punch.
I hate heels and purses because I always want to be ready to run.
Fight or flight, we're the two sides of the same coin.
The thing is that I think that I actually fight in the moment, but I think I'm going to run. I think I'm smart enough to run, but historically I'm not. So there you go.
Yeah.
The fashion in this movie, we didn't talk about it, but oh my God.
It's incredible. I would like to recommend an episode of Avery Trufelman's podcast, Articles of Interest, about the Clueless closet and why, despite the fact that we have incredible, significantly more advanced technology, that closet computer program that Cher uses has never existed. It's a really smart, interesting episode about the relationship between clothes and capitalism and overconsumption that I think would be a lovely compliment for this one.
Next week, we're watching the final scene, and it's a high school movie without a prom. So it's a high school movie with a wedding.
Can't
I
wait.
I texted you last night, so excited. I was like, Hannah, there's no prom.
Oh, we got to talk about this wedding.
So we obviously talked a little bit about this in the episode, but this, more than anything, Clueless more than anything, is an adaptation of Jane Austen's novel, Emma. Emma is not a lot of people's favorite Austen novel. And so we thought that it would be helpful if we got one of the world scholars on Jane Austen to come on and give us a little bit of context on this great work. And so we got Professor Deidre Lynch on the phone. Deidre Lynch is the Ernest Birnbaum Professor of Literature at Harvard College. She's the author of Loving Literature, A Cultural History, Janeites, Austen's Disciples and Devotees, and the editor of Mansfield Park, an annotated edition. Let's get Deidre on the phone. Hi, Professor Lynch. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Vanessa. How are you?
Oh, it's so good to see you. It's been a while. We've stopped talking professionally about Austen, and it's been sort of tragic over here.
I'm sorry. Yes, that's tragic. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So we're talking about Clueless. So we're talking about Emma. But more generally, I'm wondering if you could speak to why you think Austen is so ripe for modern adaptations. There are a lot of famous writers in the Regency era, and we're not seeing those constantly being adapted. Why is Austen always being modernized?
Well, because in fact, she is kind of modern in so many ways. Her sensibilities seem closer to ours, I think, than do the sensibilities of many of her contemporaries. But the funny thing is, I'm sorry, I'm going to nerd out on you right away.
That's literally why we called you. So thank you.
So many novelists who were her contemporaries and her successors and who were her predecessors had their works adapted for the stage.
Mm-hmm.
One of the earliest novels, Samuel Richardson's Pamela, it is a play and then an opera and then an operetta, and almost as soon as it's published. And Walter Scott's novels were also adapted for the stage. It's funny, we see her as really adaptable, but the 19th century didn't, and there aren't any adaptations of Austen until the 20th century.
That's wild.
It is wild, because everybody else, like Dickens, Scott, Charlotte Bronte, Jane Eyre was adapted for the stage, but Austen is not touched.
But it's like basically a play. The dialogue is pre-written.
But I think people miss the narrator, which does get one very easily, right, to Clueless, because one of the brilliant things that Amy Heckerling does in Clueless is that she has Cher as a voiceover narrator narrating her life and getting it wrong, as we can imagine Emma Woodhouse getting the narration of her life wrong. So it's in a funny way, Amy Heckerling found the perfect way to respond to, I think, many critics who say Austen is unfilmable because you're never going to capture the quality of that narrative voice. You'll just get the dialogue, but you won't get that narrative voice that gives you distance on what the characters are saying.
What do you mean when you say she's so modern? What do you think it is about Austen that's modern?
I think that it's partly that she doesn't moralize. Because some of her contemporaries, she has heroines like Elizabeth Bennet, like Emma Woodhouse, who seem to have quite a bit of backbone as compared to many of the heroines created by her contemporaries. I think that that's part of it. There's a lot of gray area. When the narrator looks as though she's going to give us the moral of the story, she, in fact, is sort of leaving it to us. She's playing one side against the other in ways that, defeat that account of the novel is acceptable only when it kind of cured young women of delusions or some such project.
I'm curious, when do you see the transition from adaptations of Austen novels to modernizations of them, to updates of them?
I mean, there is a way in which other novelists have been adapting Austen all along, right? So Elizabeth Gaskell adapts Mansfield Park in Wives and Daughters. You can see weirdly George Gissing in The Odd Women, which is a novel about how there are more women than there are men in England. So some women are never going to get married. And how do you write novels about them? There are moments when he's very evidently rewriting the plot of Pride and Prejudice, right? And they're modernizing. These are later 19th century novelists who are very self-consciously modernizing sort of the structure of an Austen plot as they proceed. So, Gissing's book is all about how women now have the option of becoming clerical laborers. They can work as secretaries and still be ladies. They can work at typewriting. So it definitely kind of brings the latest up-to-date communication technology into conversation with this plot. When do filmmakers start modernizing, though? It seems, I want to say the 90s. I think Amy Heckerling was in the vanguard there. There's also the brilliant Whit Stillman film, Metropolitan, which I would say also is a modernization of Mansfield Park, maybe. I mean, it's sort of multiple Austen novels all at the same time. I wish there were more modernizations in some ways. The ones that try to be faithful to the bid can feel a little weighted down by the buildings and the horses and the carriages.
I'm wondering if you can articulate for us potentially why Emma and Highbury mapped so well onto high school. What is it about Emma that just sort of can perfectly happen in a Beverly Hills high school setting?
I like that question a lot. I mean, in some ways it's because Emma's world is so very small.
Yeah.
Right? She is, of course, the heroine who has never seen the sea. And as I always say to my undergraduates, and Britain is an island. It takes some doing to be on such a short leash. So it's partly that. It's partly, too, the ways in which Austen's very careful calibrations of who gets to count in a social world and who doesn't. Those translate so well to the cliques of the high school setting, right? And we see that when Cher takes Ty on the tour and says, okay, those are the theater. I don't remember exactly the groups, but she can identify all the groups.
Right.
And that identifying is, I think, exactly what we are expected to be able to do as a reader of a Jane Austen novel.
Yeah. Okay, my last question for you is this. What is the lesson that Emma has to learn in the novel? Because I'm curious if we think that Cher learns the same lessons.
She has to learn. Oh, that's such an interesting question. I have multiple ways of answering that.
I know it's not. I'm like, you just said Austen is great because she's not reductive. And I'm like, can you please make her reductive for me?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think she has to learn that she does not float above the world of love and marriage nearly to the extent that she believes she will. She says to Harriet, I have none of the usual inducements of a woman to marry. And she forgets that maybe she might fall in love one day, right? And we've already had the chapter in which Mr. Knightley and Mrs. Weston discuss Emma. And Mr. Knightley says, almost setting up the whole novel, I'd like to see Emma in love and unsure of a return. And that is exactly the position she ends up in. So she has to learn that she is vulnerable as well, I think. And I also think she has to learn a little bit to see herself as others see her. And that she doesn't begin the novel especially skilled at that either.
Yeah. Yeah. That feels mappable to Cher. Deidre, thank you so much for coming on. It's always so fun to talk to you. You've been listening to Hot and Bothered. We love making this show, so if you love listening to it, You can support us on Patreon, where you get a bonus episode every 2 weeks, a whole bonus episode. And you can subscribe for that at patreon.com/hotandbotheredrompod. If you love the show, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you hate the show, it's weird that you're still listening to the credits. To quote the end of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, what are you still doing here? We are Not Sorry Production. I'm the executive producer. We are edited and lovingly produced by Ariana Nettleman, and we are distributed by Acast. Thank you, as always, to our soulmates. Molly Reilly, who we would chase through an airport to declare our love to, Becky Boo, who we would wait for hours on the top of the Empire State Building for, Elizabeth Schweinsberg, whose heart we would play a game of one-on-one basketball for, and Lauren Bayer O'Connell, who we would call up on stage to dance with us in front of the whole summer camp. And thanks as always to our wonderful team, Julia Argy, AJ Aramas, Courtney Brown, Anissa Ahmed, Danny Langley, Nikki Zoltan, and Stephanie Paulsell.